I'm Ruth Barclay Goddard from the Department of Physical Therapy, and the focus of my work with the Manitoba follow-up study is on health-related quality of life and response shift. And the way I became involved with the Manitoba follow-up study, Bob Tate was on my committee while I was studying my PhD in community health sciences and introduced me to the Manitoba follow-up study. And for the kind of thing that work that I'm interested in, the Manitoba follow-up study is a really rich and unique study because there's so much health-related quality of life data. Since 1996, you can have health-related quality of life information before a diagnosis is made and then after a diagnosis. So that's extremely rare. And certainly in the area of stroke, which I have focused on to date, it is unusual to have before stroke health-related quality of life data in a study. Often it's measured after a stroke and then continuing on afterwards. And then in the realm of response shift and health-related quality of life, it's really unheard of to have a before-stroke data when you're doing a response shift study. So you're probably wondering, what on earth is response shift? So I was going to talk about that very briefly for a minute. When you look at response shift, there's three different types: recalibration, reprioritization, and reconceptualization. And really, you're looking at a person, if they're thinking of their health-related quality of life over time, they change maybe what it means to them. They change the definition or how they might measure it or what is important to them. I'll give you two definitions, one for recalibration and one for reprioritization, because these are some of the things that we found in using the Manitoba follow-up study data. So recalibration is often compared to a ruler that shrinks or stretches. And so the idea here is that an individual changes their internal measurement standards over time. So a typical example is in the area of pain, for example. So a person has a knee injury and they have knee pain. They're asked, what is your pain like? And they say, well, my pain is a 10 out of 10. It's the worst pain I've ever had in my life. But then perhaps later on they have a kidney stone and they say, well, you know what, this pain really is the worst pain I've ever had in my life. This is a 10 out of 10. When I think back to that knee pain, that wasn't really a 10 out of 10, that was only a 9 out of 10. So really they've changed the way that they would measure pain over time. So with reprioritization, you think of a change in the order of importance or in the value of the domains or concepts that make up health-related quality of life for a person. So an example here for a healthy person, someone may think that sports participation is most important, then their cognitive function, and then their time spent with their family. But perhaps after a cancer diagnosis and then successful treatment, they think, well, time spent with my family really is the most important thing, and then sports, and then cognitive function. So the things that are part of what makes up health-related quality of life for them are the same, but the order or the importance of them has changed. So we have looked at health-related quality of life and looking at response shift in men who have had a stroke, who have a health-related quality of life information before and after their stroke, and who survived their stroke. And then looking at stroke-free groups of men as well. So men who did not have a stroke and did not have ischemic heart disease. And so initially, we looked at the pre-post-stroke in one control group. And we did a presentation of that at the International Society for Quality of Life Research last fall in Denver, and then had a poster at the Center on Aging Symposium this past spring. Now, since then, we've actually there was 2 more years worth of data, so we reanalyzed the data and then used 2 control groups, so a younger control group and an older control group. And this was presented a couple of weeks ago at the Canadian Association of Gerontology in Vancouver, and then we're working on a manuscript. It says prepared, being a little over-optimistic. It's almost prepared. It's getting there. And so what we found with these studies is that we did find response shift in the stroke group actually and in the control groups, and that surprisingly it was fairly similar between the groups. We found recalibration of physical function across the 3 groups, and we found reprioritization of role limitations due to either physical or emotional problems across the groups as well, which again, I had expected that perhaps there would be more response shift after stroke, thinking that the stroke would be a catalyst for some change in perceptions, but it seems to appear with usual aging as well. So some of the things that were unique about this study was that it was the first study of response shift to be able to have a pre and post health-related quality of life data, being able to look at the stroke itself as a catalyst for change. And then surprisingly, it's very similar findings to the studies of looking at response shift after stroke, where we only had after stroke data, but then continued over a longer period of time. And then response shift also does appear to occur with usual aging as well. So certainly being able to work with the Manitoba follow-up study has enabled me to be able to explore further the work that I had been doing with my PhD. And I think, as you've mentioned before, always having interesting discussions and ideas with the people working with Manitoba follow-up studies. So some ideas for some future work as well. So I think Bob had mentioned that the SAQ has a variety of questions, and then one of them says, you know, how important are the following items in determining your present quality of life? And then there's a list of things, and people say very important, moderately important, or not important. And so having that kind of information gives us another way of looking at response shift and looking at reprioritization, because a person may reorder what things they think are important related to their quality of life. So that's another avenue that we can explore using a very different methodology than what we have done so far, which was actually using structural equation modeling. So give us an opportunity to do some comparisons as well.